Mr. Henderson, you represent over 200 civil rights organizations, including ACLU, the NAACP, Access, ADL. So that means you and your members are basically at the forefront of the horrible and deadly reality that the threat of domestic terrorism presents from white supremacist, anti-government groups, conspiracy theorists, and the list of violent extremists that are operating in our country. My question to you, sir, is, in your view, how has this threat evolved for your members over the last few years?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. This issue of domestic terrorism, hate crime, violence, call it what you will, has been a significant problem throughout the history of the African American experience and many other communities, as I mentioned in my formal testimony, that have been marginalized in American society throughout the time of their presence in this country. Again, I noted, of course, the experience of African Americans with chattel slavery, with Jim Crow segregation, with the deprivation of access to the right to vote, and continued violence directed toward our communities by way of lynching and pogroms that have actually occurred in communities like Tulsa, Oklahoma, and like the community in Florida that has been affected by all of this violence. The same is true of other groups. My colleague John Yang talked about the deprivation of liberty suffered by Japanese American citizens during World War II, or the experience of Native Americans who were forcibly relocated from their ancestral lands. All of these communities have experienced periods of violence directed at their members for a variety of reasons, but all of it stems from a source of white supremacist attitude toward these communities and the denial of their right to equal citizenship and equal protection of the law. Of course, the problem has been exacerbated in recent time by the availability of social media. And social media has contributed to the radicalization of individuals, to the isolation of others in ways that have fostered their involvement in this kind of white supremacist hate crime violence. It is an ongoing, continuing problem, one of significant magnitude, and needs to be addressed. Domestic terrorism is the #1 priority of the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. And so labeling does matter. However, it affects, of course, the allocation of resources by the federal government to address these issues. My main contention is that the federal government needs to do what it knows it is required to do by law with respect to all persons in the United States. It has the resources to address these issues. It does not have, at this point, the political will, and that is what I hope these hearings will help provide.
Thank you. Mr. Fingerhut, the Jewish community has seen some of the worst acts of violence and anti-Semitism in the history of this country in recent years, and you mentioned some of those in your opening testimony. My question to you is, how can federal agencies, especially the DHS, collaborate with state and local partners to assist these communities? What are the things that we must be doing now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I greatly appreciate the question. Of course, as I emphasized in my testimony, the support of the federal government for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program is essential. And critically, sir, it is, and members of the committee, it is not only an increase in funding, but it is as well the support for the agencies that administer those programs at the federal and at the state levels, and the commitment for the technical support for all of the faith-based and nonprofit institutions that are eligible to apply for them. These are, by necessity, somewhat technical in nature, and we do our very best through our Jewish Federation system and with our other religious and ethnic communal partners to educate all of the faith-based and nonprofit institutions about the method and the technical details of the applications, it nevertheless remains an important responsibility of DHS and of the FBI to assist these communities. As I mentioned in my testimony, the Secure Community Network, which is an organization that we started together with a conference of presidents of major Jewish organizations in the 2004 post 9/11 era, is in direct and regular contact with the Department of Homeland Security and is prepared to assist them in that effort. Secondly, as I also indicated in my testimony, Mr. Chairman, it is important that the faith-based and nonprofit community be designated as a critical infrastructure, as have 16 other sectors of our community of the nation's economy and communal infrastructure, so as to require the Department of Homeland Security and the other federal law enforcement agencies to create a comprehensive approach to working with the faith-based and nonprofit communities. As you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee well know, in our society, the way American society is structured, the partnership between government and the nonprofit and faith-based sectors in the delivery of core and essential human services, as well as education and communal activities of all kinds, is an essential partnership. And recognizing that critical infrastructure, as we just evidenced during the pandemic, the partnership between the federal government and the nonprofit and the faith-based communities were essential to carrying our communities through the COVID pandemic. And it will be so as well as we tackle the domestic extremism issues. In addition, finally, I'd repeat the comment I made about increasing access to DHS's cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies, protective security advisors, and cybersecurity advisors to assist the nonprofits that navigating the grant opportunities. Again, the Secure Community Network would be our representative and also works with other of the faith-based and religious communities in that effort.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the detailed answer. Ranking Member Portman, you're now recognized for your questions.